Hi, this is MIcornus Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today, I just want to speak a little bit about characteristics of congregational churches. And I want to speak about this because many times we find churches that are Pentecostal operating like congregational churches, actually, because people don't know the difference between a Pentecostal church and a congregational church. And I want to speak about that just to outline what a congregational church is all about so that we can understand that when you are a Pentecostal church, you need to run a bit differently. You need to manage the church a little bit differently so that it doesn't become a congregational church. Maybe we should actually mention also that most of the congregational churches, they all started being Pentecostal churches, and one way or another, they started falling through the cracks and become congregational churches. But because they just didn't actually take note of what congregational churches are all about, and this is the reason why I want to speak about that just now. Now, the first thing that you recognize about congregational church, one, you find that the decision powers, they rest upon the congregation. So in this case, you find that the congregation is almighty and powerful in the sense of decision making. They are the ones who basically hire and fire pastors. They're the ones who actually propose who should be the pastor and who should not be the pastor, because all powers are vested upon them. And we have seen in congregational churches that decisions that are even strategic, even visionary decisions, the congregation want to take charge and they want to make decisions that are crucial for the church. And they are actually taking charge in a way that the pastor then become a lame duck. The pastor then becomes somebody who listens to what the congregation says. Because if the pastor doesn't do as the congregation say, generally in a congregational church, they can fire you as a pastor. They can actually terminate your services as a pastor. Because in the first place, normally the congregation, in congregational churches, they would interview someone to become a pastor of the church. And they would make sure that they employ a pastor that they would pay with the decision of how much they want to pay that pastor. And as a result, then the pastor should actually hear from them. In that case, you'll realize that the decisions will be taken by the church. Secondly, the leaders are voted for in the congregation, in congregational churches, whereby the pastor has been appointed, has been employed by the congregation, but they also provide a setup or a platform of voting for leaders. So, in other words, the elders in a particular congregational church, they will be voted for, and there are terms of years that they need to be in their portfolios or in their seats, whether it is 1 or 2 years, they are actually deciding on the time. And therefore, the congregation will be able to appoint who's the chairperson, and they will actually vote for who's the secretary. And then therefore, the church is decided, or the leadership is decided by the congregation itself. So they would vote some people that they prefer for themselves. So sometimes people vote for their own friends. Sometimes people vote the people that would trouble the pastor for intentionally like that. They would actually appoint people that say, we want so and so that so and so can sort out the pastor or deal with the pastor. So that's the congregational churches generally. They operate that way, and their system is about voting and leadership into their leadership roles, into their positions. So therefore, people will stay for certain term. As I said, it could be a year or 2 years, but they would actually go for general meeting again, annual general meeting, where they will vote in leaders as well. So we want to emphasize that congregational churches are operating slightly differently from a Pentecostal church, and that is why people that come to Pentecostal churches actually with a mind of congregational approach, they find themselves frustrated in how things are running in Pentecostal churches. So another thing that you see in congregational churches is the congregation has power to hire and to fire the pastor, as I've mentioned earlier. So therefore, they would actually appoint anyone to become a pastor. It's not a matter of you being called. It's not a matter of you having the vision, because congregational churches, basically, there's no vision. Rather, it's actually about gathering and making sure that people come to church and they take care of them. And there's nothing much about what we call a vision. So therefore, there wouldn't be a pastor who says, I'm a visionary in this case, because you just need somebody to preside over the church and be called a pastor to lead that church as being put by the congregation. So therefore, it is not an issue of having a vision in this regard. So we will see the congregation then appointing a pastor, and also ability to fire the pastor as well at their own whim and will. And that's something that we should actually underline right now. The other thing that we'll see in congregational churches is congregation decides on salaries of workers, including the pastors as well. So if there are workers in the church, the congregation will be the one in their general meeting that they will decide on how much they pay the workers, including the pastor, because the pastor in this regard is taken as a worker, is actually regarded as an employee of the congregation, an employee of the church, and therefore they would actually decide on the salary. And they would actually sometimes put you on probation as a pastor, and based on how you lead the church, how you manage the church, how you preach, how you minister, and so on, they would actually decide on your salary. And that's very common in congregational churches, and we want to just highlight that. As the congregational churches have got actually a decision on how much they pay the employees, and they also decide on who to employ in the church for what position as well. So meaning that everybody else who's actually working in the church is employed by the church and the congregation itself, and the decision of their salary has been decided actually by the congregation itself. So congregational churches as well, the church leadership operates as a committee and is led by a chairperson, as I've mentioned earlier. When they are voting, they're actually voting in a chairperson, they'll vote in a secretary, maybe a deputy chairperson, a deputy secretary as well. They'll vote in the treasurer as well. And all that is because they're voting in. And as I've mentioned earlier as well, that they actually have AGMs, which are annual general meetings, where they would actually vote in leadership that particular time. And if the term of the leadership is actually 2 years, they will have annual general meetings, but in the second year, they would actually be going for election conference or election meeting, actually. So where they will actually elect the leadership in there. And those that are leaders at that particular time, they will therefore hand over to those that are stepping in and become a new leadership completely. Now, the other thing that we see in congregational churches as well is the vision of the church is usually not very clear at all, as I've mentioned earlier, because it is not actually the vision that is actually having a custodian or an individual that say, I'm called by God and I've got this vision, and therefore I lead this church to this direction because of the vision. So it is not clear. It's very cloudy in a way that some of the congregational churches have got actual structures of a head office, whereby they will decide through a calendar of the year of what to be ministered about. And they will actually align scriptures as well that they need to minister on particular dates. So they will have these booklets with dates, and then on those dates, they will actually put some scriptures and the type of a sermon, or rather the sermon that needs to be preached. Then you find that all over the country in a congregational church, you find that they actually ministering about the same theme that has been decided maybe at the head office in that regard. And that shows you clearly lack of vision here. It shows you clearly that there's no definite vision, because there's no individual who say that God has given me this particular vision. What they do is they actually lead the church based on what is guided in the head office. And that's what congregational church is all about. We want to end up here today. Your host, MIcornus Phokane. I'm the leader and the founder of the Church Governance Solutions. And I want to draw your attention to our Facebook page, MIcornus Phokane, and the Facebook page, Church Governance Solutions. So please like those pages and to make sure that you click notification buttons as well. We want to draw your attention as well to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is under Young Men Empowerment Forum. So please like that as well and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And our our good Lord will bless you for doing that. And also maybe a TikTok account that you need to be aware of. And our TikTok account is under MIcornus Phokane as well. And I want to urge you so to please follow us on TikTok, and the good Lord will bless you as you do that. Till we meet again with another topic, may the good Lord bless you right now and enjoy the evening. And cheers for now.